In Suspicion, you reunite with Chris Long, who was one of the executive producers and directors of The Americans. So was it hard for him to lure you to the project, or you just jumped right in Suspicion?
I'm a giant fan of Chris Long. We had a great working relationship and friendship throughout The Americans. So when he called, I was predisposed already to say, I'm in. I don't even need to read it. But of course, I did read it. But yes, I was very excited. As I get older, I realize what you're doing is critical, but who you're doing it with is equally critical. And I want to spend my days with people that I enjoy being with, that I enjoy working with. And Chris is at the top of that list. So that was a great adventure. Unexpected because of what happened, to the world while we were doing this. But I was glad to be with Chris.
And you're also working again with Stefan Schwartz, and you are also back in the FBI in
Yes.
Suspicion, because like Stan, Scott is a federal agent. So are there any more similarities between those two characters, or Suspicion was like a brand new challenge for you as an actor?
Yeah, I mean, there are, of course, those similarities, but I do think of it as completely different characters and different stories, different worlds. So it was like we had this sort of connective tissue from The Americans, but that's really where it ended. I mean, the similarity is just that they're both FBI agents, but completely different types of FBI agents, completely different worlds. And there was some reservation because we didn't want to just do Stan Beeman in this show, but we felt like it was different enough and enough changes and enough difference in the performance that it was going to be different. I hope that's the hope. But it's tricky because there is some overlap.
Yeah, and there's something really interesting about Suspicion that could be also a thing that we saw in The Americans, and is the lack of trust nowadays, because it reflects how in this post-truth world we can barely trust anyone.
Yes.
So is this internet paranoia even more dangerous or complex than that paranoia that was experienced during the Cold War or in other chapters of history?
I do. I think it's more pervasive. I think it's more widespread. I think it's more paranoid. I think the Cold War was simple by comparison. It was just two adversaries, with two different agendas. Now, with such a balkanized world, now it's so many people. Everybody's paranoid. There's so many different groups, and they're all connected through social media. So even the most fringe perspective all of a sudden has 1 million members because they're 10 here, 10 there, 100 there, 5 there, all over the world, and they're reunited through social media. So it's a house of mirrors. It's like a Russian nesting doll. There's just so many layers, so many different groups thinking different things, sharing different truths. There's no unifying accepted truth in the world anymore, and that's a very scary, dangerous place to be when you can't have an agreed upon reality. How do you build a society? How do you cooperate? So I think things have gotten worse since the Cold War. Certainly in terms of truth, in terms of cooperation, in terms of society, in terms of. It's funny because I think the world is actually becoming more collaborative. The world is shrinking. It's gotten smaller. We're, as highlighted by COVID. I mean, here we are. We're definitely one people, right? It doesn't matter. We're one tribe. It's called Homo sapiens. That's who we are. There's not Spanish and American or black and white. There's human beings and everything else. And so in some sense, we're headed towards a more cohesive, united front. On the other sense, we're breaking up and falling apart. And it's, my hope is that transitions are always messy. Transitions are always painful and hard. Growth is hard and painful. But the most optimistic interpretation of this is it's a transition and a growth towards a more cohesive, unified sense of humanity. And everything that we're experiencing right now is hopefully temporary, what will emerge through all this chaos and mess is a more unified human race.
Thank you so much, Noah. And
Thank
I hope
you.
that at least people will agree on how much they like Suspicion. If they have to
I
agree
hope
on
so.
something.
We can agree on that. Okay, I'll take it.